Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at everything you need to know before you head into ranked with the Reworked Wukong. So we're going to be taking a look at how pros and high elo Wukong players are playing him right now in patch 10.6, everything ranging from combos you should be using, best bans, tips and tricks, builds, runes, ability maxing, and so on. So with that being said, guys, let's get started. So let's start off by taking a look at a couple key combos that you need to know before playing Wukong. The first one here is going to be the quick trade combo. So you're going to E in onto the opponent, auto attack, then Q, because your Q is an auto attack reset, right? So in order for you to get the most amount of burst damage off in the shortest amount of time, you do want to be throwing in an auto attack before the Q there, and then you can look to W to get away. So this is just a really fast trade combo to where the opponent really can't trade back against you very easily. You're going to win the trade pretty much every single time when you do use this combo in the laning phase. And then for your full burst all-in combo at level 6, what you'd want to look to do is E in onto the opponent, auto attack, get the Q for the auto attack reset, then use your W before you ult. This is really important with the Reworked Wukong because your W clone is going to ult as well. So you're going to have two ults running. Your clone can now actually deal damage with the Reworked Wukong. So very important there if you're looking to burst, if you're looking to all in, that you do use your W before you use your ultimate. And then you now do have two charges of your ultimate as well, or you can use your ultimate twice. So what you want to look to do is once the first ultimate expires there, then you want to get an auto attack in, use your Q for the auto attack reset because your Q will be back up. If you don't know, whenever you use an ability or you deal damage to the opponent, it's going to reduce the cooldown of your Q. So before you activate your second ultimate, you want to make sure you are weaving in that auto attack, then Q, and then ulting again to finish the target off. And then once you do reach the mid to late game, you should always be paying attention to flank opportunities with Wukong. He's one of the best flanking champions in the game, so pay attention to TP wards, pay attention to just trying to get behind the opponent, coming from the side, coming from the fog of war, and then just look to jump on them if they're grouped up. If you notice them grouped up, get a flash EW ult onto the opponent and it's going to deal an immense amount of damage. You're going to CC the whole enemy team, and you should single-handedly be able to win team fights if you can use this combo consistently with Wukong. For a couple tips and tricks here that I haven't talked about already, one you should be aware of for sure if you play top lane or mid lane Wukong is that you can use your W to tank minions when you're trying to set a freeze. So this is really important for if you're just trying to keep the wave in front of your tower, you're trying to deny the enemy a lot of CS in the laning phase. If you get really far ahead, look to use this on Wukong. It just allows you to not tank any extra unneeded damage from the minion wave. Like if there's a bunch of minions crashing into your tower and you just want to set a freeze in front, you can just use your W so that you don't need to tank the minions yourself. You can also look to juke with Wukong's W by moving in one direction and then using the W in the complete opposite direction, so your clone is still going to face the direction you were originally moving towards. So the enemy is going to think you're continuing to move towards that direction, but actually you end up going the complete opposite direction. So I'll have this as an example here in the background gameplay, but yeah, you can look to use this as well to juke out the opponents and to get yourself out of really sticky situations. This is a really good one to use like if you're entering a bush or something and then you just use your W in the opposite direction and the opponent just doesn't even know where you've gone. Like you can really just use this to confuse the opponents and they'll just have no clue where you've gone in certain situations. So let's move on to breaking down a couple different builds going around on Wukong right now. The first one we'll take a look at is the Korean on-hit build, to where you go Blade the Ruined King Rush into a Black Cleaver and then a Death's Dance. The reason to why this works a lot better on the new Wukong is that your W is now going to like proc on-hit effects and it's going to deal damage to the opponent. So if you end up like all-inning your opponent or just dueling your opponent, then your W is going to be procking like your Black Cleaver. You're going to be getting a lot of stacks really quickly from that. You're also going to be procking the on-hit effects from Blade the Ruined King there really quickly and just getting a lot of benefit from that. So this build is really popular right now over in Korea. Like it's the most used build at the moment. NA, EU aren't really using it as often, but it's a build to where if you're going up against like a lot of bruiser champions, or if you're going up against a very tanky enemy team composition, this is the one I would be looking to prioritize most of the time. With Wukong's new passive too, it benefits him a lot for taking these extended fights. He's not as much of like a burst champion anymore. He's definitely more of like a bruiser champion. So by going for this Bork and Black Cleaver setup, it allows you to take more extended fights with him. It allows you to stack up that passive, get a lot more armor, so you're going to be very difficult to kill well when taking those extended fights. You're going to stack up your Conquer very quickly. So overall, this build does synergize really nicely with new Wukong's kit. The second build option you have with Wukong is going for Tiamat into Triforce and then Death's Dance. This is one you do see a lot more over in NA and EU West. Even in Korea, it's the second most used build right now in this patch. So this one does give you a little bit more burst potential for sure with the Triforce and the Death's Dance there. It's a little bit less strong in like extended trades, a little bit better just in straight up like burst and all-in situations. So there's definitely pros and cons to like both builds on the champion. I think depending on the game, depending on your playstyle, you can look to switch things up. So if the enemy team isn't going to be building a lot of HP, they're not going to be building tanky at all, I would probably prioritize going for Triforce and Death's Dance. But if they do have more tanky members, if they're going to be stacking a lot of armor, then going for Bork and Black Cleaver would be the right choice in that situation. And then if the enemy comp is not going to be stacking a lot of armor, but they're still going to be stacking a lot of HP, you can go for like a Bork Rush still, but instead of going for Black Cleaver, you can go for Triforce and then you can go for Death's Dance. So depending on the game, like look to swap up your build. You should never have like one build every single game. In my opinion, with Wukong, his build can definitely change a lot depending on your matchup and depending on the enemy composition. And then for your starting items on Wukong, this is going to depend on your matchup, and whichever item you start here, whether it be the Corrupting Potion or the Doran's Blade, it's also going to dictate what rune page you do take on Wukong. So this is pretty important here. Going Corrupting Potion is going to be better for you in ranged or hard matchups to where you're going to be getting poked out a lot in the laning phase and you just need that extra sustain. If you do feel like you have more early kill pressure though, if you think you can get a solo kill early on in the laning phase, then I would be looking to go for the Doran's Blade. And then for your runes here on Wukong, two different pages right now that depend on the situation. So if you are going up against that ranged top laner or a more difficult matchup, start the Corrupting Potion and then take Inspiration secondary. So go for Time Warp, go for the biscuits there, allows you to sustain through the early game a lot easier. If you're in an easier matchup though, if you can get a solo kill early on, you're very confident in your matchup, then look to take Resolve secondary. You can go the Bone Plating there, go the Demolish. This just allows you to be stronger in the 1v1 there from the Bone Plating, and it also allows you to take towers a lot faster, get a lot more tower plates in the early game there with the Demolish. And then for your primary runes there for Wukong, it's going to be Conquer every single game as your keystone. Don't be looking to take anything else. Some players go Electrocute right now on Wukong, but Conquer just synergizes way too good with your new W and with your new ultimate, so do not pass up on going Conquer. As for your other runes there, Triumph is going to be really good for every game. Some players go Presence of Mind, but I just think Triumph is going to be more consistent for you. Alacrity or Tenacity are completely fine. If the enemy team composition does have a ton of CC, I would be looking to run Tenacity instead of Alacrity. And as for Last Stand or Coup de Grace, if you're in a ranged matchup, if you're in a matchup to where you're going to be poked out a lot in the laning phase, you're going to be lower HP, so you're going to get more benefit there out of the Last Stand. If you're in a much more easier matchup though, if you think you're going to be able to bully the opponent out of lane and you're going to be higher on HP a lot of the time, then Coup de Grace is going to be stronger in those situations. And then for skill order or ability maxing on your Reworked Wukong, it's going to be E first, Q second, and then W last for like 90% of your games. E first is a lot better because it deals more base damage than your Q. It's your gap closer, so having that on a shorter cooldown is really nice for you to just stay very mobile. It also deals magic damage, so this is really good because the enemy top laner is most likely going to be prioritizing armor in the matchup, so your E is going to deal a lot of damage because they're not going to have any magic resist. The only time to where I'd really max out your Q before your E on Wukong is if they're stacking like a ton of armor in the early game. Like if they have a couple champions who are going to be stacking a ton of armor, I could see it being worthwhile in that situation because your Q does give you more armor shred the more points you put into it. But other than that, most of your games, like that's not going to happen, right? So I would just be looking to max your E out first. The ability you take at level 1 though is going to depend on your matchup, so if you can't trade it all at level 1 in your matchup, if you're going up against like a more difficult matchup and you just don't want to trade it all level 1, look to start your Q there because it is going to give you a little bit more range on your auto attack. It's going to allow you to stay back a little bit further, get that 1 or 2 extra CS in the laning phase because of the extra range on your Q. If you do want to play aggressively though, if you can trade level 1, start your E for sure because it's going to give you the gap close to jump onto your opponent, it's going to give you the damage, and it's also going to give you the attack speed there, so it's just a much better option at level 1 if you are looking to 1v1. And then for some best bans in this patch, if you're playing Wukong, some champions that counter him the hardest right now, there's 6 different ones there I have put up on screen. Obviously, there's a couple more as well that can do pretty well into him, but these are the 6 right now that I'd probably say are the best bans for 10.6. So the first one there is Garen. I just think Garen is the best ban in this patch for really any top lane champion. Like, he's just a very strong pick right now for 10.6, so you can't really go wrong with banning Garen. Alawi's a pretty good one as well. You don't see her too often though, so I probably wouldn't use my ban on Alawi, but it's a more difficult matchup for Wukong because Alawi excels into champions that want to dive on top of her. She does very well into dive champions, so it is a more difficult matchup for Wukong. He does tend to struggle against Singed as well as Mordekaiser too right now, or against like really any AP matchup because you don't get any magic resist from your passive, right? So he does tend to do much better into AD champions because you get a lot more benefit there from your passive, stacking up that armor in those AD matchups. Shen's a little bit of a more difficult matchup as well because if you try to trade with him in the laning phase, if you jump on top of him, he's got his W to where he can negate a lot of your damage. So the only damage you're really going to be able to deal in a trade with Wukong is from your E. You're going to have your auto attack and your Q blocked from Shen's W, so it makes it so that trading in the laning phase is not very good with Wukong, so it's definitely a harder matchup for sure. And then Poppy just generally does very well into any champion that needs to use a gap closer to get on top of her, so with Wukong it's going to be much more difficult for you to actually trade against Poppy in the laning phase. If she just times that well, she's just going to be able to out trade you pretty easily post level 3. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. Hopefully you did learn something from this video that you can look to now apply to your future games with Wukong, and hopefully this does now give you the edge over your opponents when you do head into ranked. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.